Hello everyone, Colonel for here, and welcome back to another episode from Hultfeder Labs. Today we continue on with Fiore's sword in two hands and look at another one of the 12 guard positions in which he offers us. And this is going to be the first of the stable guards positions, if you will, that we're going to be looking at. And we're going to look at some of the properties and structures in place that come out of this position. Now I want to be clear on people on this right here that the concept of stabile, pulsativa, and instabile are we don't know what the maestro means. So anything I put into these videos is my interpretation of how that applies and what's important about that. So please understand that this is not going to be something that's in the manuscript. It is something that I anatomically observe within myself, but I believe is what he's trying to teach us right here. It also may give us a concept and ideas in regards to other systems, such as the Lichtenauer system here, which is a very important thing here to look at. So with that being the case, before I get too far into it, let's take a look.
So the next of the 12 posta or guardia of the sword in two hands that we're going to be looking at is we're going to be talking about the Porta di Ferro Mezana. And again, just like we talked about before, there are points that come across here from earlier portions of the manuscript, from apprezzari to dagger, and again into the sword in two hands, which I believe have applicability here. Again, structural context and tones that are meant to go across here into the shape of the sword. So let's get into that. So the first position that we're going to be talking about right here that I think makes a lot of sense here is we're talking about, because we're extended forward here, we're utilizing the concept of posta frontale. The position of this guard is a right foot forward position right here, hands out in front into a low extension point. So we're utilizing applications of Porta di Ferro from apprezzari and your posta frontale, because it's a low position here. A couple other things we're going to be using here is it's going to be talking about a little bit of how it is best for a longer sword. And I have a theory on that does not necessarily mean a longer sword. It means that your arms are not back here, it's that they are extended outward into a longer position. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit. So those right there are basic concepts right here that are the build-up portion, structural portions that we need to remember from earlier sections that translate over into this position. Combining that together, if I'm arm extended, Mezza Porta di Ferro is the blades out in front. I have the point right in line to make into posta longa, and my feet are in the direction that allows me to go forward with this. Now, I want to be clear on this. I feel that this right here, if I'm coming over and the blade's coming onto this side, I am starting to move into a different position, which is also, in my opinion, a bigger portion of the rotational concept of this guardia when it comes into utilizing all three of what I think are the low line position, which I made a video about that like last year. But right now, we're talking about Mezza Porta di Ferro in itself in a vacuum. And what we have right here is we have the ability to strike and beat across in different areas. Again, if I take posta longa, I'm extended here, my body's tight here, forward with this. But if I drop down the sword into this position, and it's long, it's a longer sword, so I'm not keeping it tight, I have it extended out here, I am able to move quite freely with this because, again, the sword is very close to me into the structural arc of the body. So Mezza Porta di Ferro in itself right there, again, by utilizing the concept of frontale being forward, and Porta di Ferro, how we have that bracing concept using the hips. By being in this low position here, this makes your Mezza Porta di Ferro. It is a very strong position in many regards because it absolutely attacks not only just thrust lines to the body, but it also talks about being able to utilize towards the lower quarter of the body because you have the punta line right in front of you. If you think about this, the only other position that has a sword in two-hand position like this, depicted within the armored sword section, it is Mezza Porta di Ferro, as such. And to me, that is not a mistake because, again, if I'm wearing arm harness, I weigh more, and on top of also that, if the person's got a visor, it's a lot easier for me to sneak this thing up and to strike and to thrust into their quarter. This position right here also is good for beating blows to the side and being able to deliver strikes and other concepts off of that. So being right here, I can beat a sword to the side by this. I can use footwork, which is what I typically like to use about this because it allows for me to be able to, if I step along with a crest, utilizing a concept of posta di donna, coming over, beating, and then right back in to a spot to thrust. Right into a spot. It's full of deception because of being in a low position right here. Where am I going at? If I keep on a more strato plane, I can encroach and threaten with a low position. On a lower position, if I'm working sideways to this, more of a largo concept, I am also able to shift my angle to a right area, and when I'm able to enter in on somebody. So by shifting, popping into an attack. Shifting, beating, thrusting. Right there you have a lot of different plays that allow for this position. I personally like to use this a lot with an armor because it is very good, in my opinion, all that low thrust, especially in an area where historically you're not necessarily covered. In this area right here, there's not a lot of protection because you have to ride a horse within that period. So, and not to mention, you may not have the full tassered complements or falds that you see in later period armor. It's a lot more breastplate up, sometimes you have falds. Where the leg harness comes up is also dependent upon what you have, and chainmail comes down and covers a good portion of this area, but it doesn't necessarily protect you from being up underneath the chainmail line. So that's why this position is very strong. Utilizing it as a guardian, right? So we have the ability to beat swords across. We can deny planes with this. We can shift up. It's very easy to attack. It's just straight in. With one crest, I make posta longa. With a pass, I make posta longa. It depends on what I want to do with this, and that's all the shifting point of it all. As a posta, it is classified as stabile. Now, to me, stabile means it has come from perhaps a pulsativa position. It's been extended out into instability, and now I move into a stable position. So it's an ending point. As much as it's an ending point, it is also a starting point, right? So just because I'm not pulsed into it, I can be low here, shift up, and come right back down to it. It's a great place to find a place to hunker down and to thrust and contend with somebody, and to utilize those concepts of posta longa as I see fit once I move in on somebody. So as a posta, it is a ending position from any position that's coming from on high, or maybe sweeping across into a lower line attack. And because of those concepts right there, it also makes it very versatile to be able to shift in many directions. So what I mean by that is this position right here, we talked about the concept of what I call a reciprocal guard, which, to be clear, is a Kurtism. And if I'm here in this position, a reciprocal guard is a way here. If I turn my body to leave the sword, I am now in coda longa. So just by maintaining this position here and then shifting over to the other side, I am now in a reciprocal position here to be able to utilize the sword in a different way. So that makes it a very versatile position to go in many different directions. It also is a way of being able to have a steeper strike. So if I am in posta di donna and I can strike out with this, to and through, down, you can see how the angle is very steep. Not to the top of the head, because it's going to have to take, I'm on my right side of my body here, you can see if this is the plane. By shifting, there's automatically going to be an arc that comes out and around this way. So if I make my center line the center position, I have a very steep strike. If I was to strike into dente di cingaro or dente di cingaro Mezana, the angle starts to shift. So from here, strike, and now you see how the angle becomes wider into dente, or even further into that dente di cingaro Mezana, cross horizontally. So that's a big portion of the Mezza Porta di Ferro, is that it puts it much low. If you're talking about a vertical strike, vertical strike that's coming straight from above. If I come down to the center area, I've rounded out, I have a very steep strike which I believe he's meaning to be somewhere in the lines of his fendente line. So that's how we can find this position. Again, in moments of tactics, I can be up in posta longa. Maybe I pass down into Mezza Porta di Ferro, turn to coda longa. I can shift out and put myself right back down into this. Either way, it is a very fantastic way to be able to move and shift into multiple different directions, which allows for us to be able to probe, to strike, and to basically fight lazy, which I actually like doing a lot more than anything else. And because I like to fight with gripping the pommel, because I like to be able to just burst up into an attack or into a closer quarter, it allows for me to kind of have that play time to be able to find out when's my moment, and then pop into place. Because my arms are long, that's one more thing I want to talk about this. I forgot to do this earlier. So this is the position my arms are long out, posta longa, right? Whether it's this way or this way, it doesn't matter. If my arms are long, a longer sword, when I pop up, it automatically makes that shape. So you already have that shoveling up that pops right in and denies people entry on you.
So as you can see with the video, the Mezza Porta di Ferro Mezana is a very strong position. I mean, he writes it as such, that it is an iron gate because it's strong in its position. I personally like utilizing this because a lot of people don't necessarily know what to do against a thrust that comes straight up at your eyes very quickly. And I'm not necessarily just talking about out of armor, I'm talking about in armor. In fact, actually, this is the position here that is used both in and out of armor and is depicted as such within the Getty, which is, I think, is a huge tactical observation of what Fiore is trying to tell people to do with a lower line threat. And perhaps might be the big point of what his and other maestros also think out there about threatening to the eyes and then striking through. It's a big point about how the combat system in this time period may have been more effective. When it comes down to stable and unstable positions, again, what we're looking at here is the potential for being able to come down and then to come straight out again. If my muscularity is up and about in different directions, I have to collect myself, I have to amass and then extend. And in that extension, I'm unstable, right? Which is why I think the whole thing of what he's trying to say when it comes down to the instabile is that essentially if I come to a stable position, I can then shift or pulse into a position that allows me to create a different action. And that in a place of stability, I have ways to fight out of that are already laid in wait, and that there's ways to go to other areas quite quickly. Because of this concept right here, it makes me wonder, essentially, if Fiore would rather us fight in a lower guard. Because in a lower guard, the sword is not fighting against you. Your arms weigh, if you're wearing armor, they don't weigh nearly as much. And you basically can sit there and move as you would see fit in a lower position, and then move into another position to strike out. This also, in my opinion, gives a concept of when we look at Lichtenauer's concept of 5 words of vor, nach, in, des, the beginning, the middle, and the end, if you will, and then stark and schwach, which is strong and weak. I think what we're seeing here is that in a pulsativa or stabile position, you are in a position of strength. You muscularly activate up into that position, and then you're going to release those muscles as you extend out, and then you re-engage them as you come back down into a place of another action point, your huta, if you will. And here, the posta, as you move posta to posta, you have stable positionings, unstable positionings, and in other positions that basically are rotational to convey other blows, or sorry, to send other blows that may come out that way. And that's what really this position here, in my opinion, really offers us as far as insight, as far as how to play and fight. So with that being the case here, that's going to do it for this video right here. The Porta di Ferro Mezana is a fantastic position that, in my opinion, also lies in a similar trajectory between Dente di Cingaro and Dente di Cingaro Mezana, which are 2 other lower guards that we'll see later on. Because of it, essentially, means that we're basically seeing 3 different direction points in which the sword can end, or end, because of where you try and take the sword to. And because you have those 3 positions offline, you have 3 blows right there, 3 starting points right there in which you are able to power project and shift to and through to cause more danger towards a person. And that's what these things, that's what this position to me, as well as the others, is really signifying to us. So tell me what you think about the Porta di Ferro Mezana. Do you deploy it? Are you familiar with the concept of instabile, stabile, or propulsativa? What do these 3 words mean to you? Are you interested in being able to fight out of a lower guard? What have you been taught to do as far as fight out of a lower guard? I'm very curious about how people look at these things, because the reality is, as it looks, there's plenty of things right here that are available to us that I didn't actually think about doing until I started to wear armor. And I'm curious about what would happen for you. So with that being the case here, everybody, that does it for this video. If you've liked this content, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. I want to grow this channel, and it's not possible without viewers like you. And don't forget, hit that bell right there to make sure that you are also notified when new content is dropped. Love to have you along this trip here for the 14th century art of arms, and to be able to carry forth and see more about what Fiore has to offer us. So until next time, everybody, as always, please be safe out there, train well, and fight on. I'll see you all soon.